I think that's something that's kind of like a black box
100%.
a lot of times with therapy.
Yeah.
Is like, how do you find these people?
So my first advice to everybody listening, don't talk to your insurer. They know jack shit about anything. Like I literally, when I was doing individual therapy, I went on the insurer portal to find people in network. About 80% of the people I contacted were not in network and the other 20% didn't respond. And then I asked the health insurance person to help me with it because they have like resource teams that will like supposedly like hook you up. And they're like, oh, these are the people you should talk to. I'm like, nope, they're not in the portal no more. And they're like, oh, huh. And I'm like, cool, thank you very much for nothing. So don't talk to insurance people. They know shit about nothing. Referrals, honestly. Referrals, like ask your friends, ask your network, like post it where you feel comfortable. The therapist that I work with now, I landed from a referral from a friend who was already working with him, and he was like, this therapist is amazing. And another one of our friends was also working with him, and he's a LCSW, so he's also like in the biz, so to speak. So I was like, okay, like if he thinks he's also good, then like this is a good connect. For the couples therapist situation, I tried to get a referral, but my therapist was like, yeah, I don't really know anyone doing that practicing in New York State. So it's a little bit challenging as well. So I try to do the whole like network thing, but where I landed currently is there are like a few aggregation sites that I feel like are a little bit more legit than like Psychology Today or like maybe ZocDoc. It's called With Alma, and it's kind of a portal site for a bunch of different doctors, but I think the information is like a lot more accurate. Like people in network and out of network, like I would look at the provider and then I would actually go to their site, and the information on the site actually matched what was on the portal. Because like a lot of times, for example, on Psychology Today, you'll see like a listing for the provider and it'll be like in network, everything, all the insurance. And then you'll go to the website and they'll be like, everything's out of network. We actually meant like, oh, we just like take all the insurances out of network, which is, if you've ever done that, it's very, very different. You put all the money up front and then your insurance pays you back, which is cuckoo crazy. So a lot of the ones that I looked at, I actually bounced to their site to see like what the official like coverage was, and it mostly matched. Still looking, but hopeful that that resource will work.
And similar to your individual therapist, are you applying specific filters of the type of person that you're looking for? Because I know you cycle through a couple of folks for your individual guy.
I think that's such an important thing because therapy is like, at least for me, 80% of it is the relationship that you have with your therapist. Because if you don't feel comfortable with the person, you're never going to get really vulnerable with them, and they also will not get real with you in the way that you might need it. So for me, as with my individual therapist, I was like, I need somebody who is in the Rainbow Mafia. Like it just was really hard to explain certain aspects of our relationship and relationship challenges to someone who is not LGBT, and specifically like also kind of looking for a gay man, because same kind of situation, like within that microcosm there is like also another very specific experience that it just removes some of the friction of the conversation, where you don't have to like set such a huge context up before your therapist is like, oh, I get what's happening. And even then, sometimes when you do that, they're like, you don't get it. Having that same kind of identity reflected back at you makes you feel comfortable that the person you're talking to really understands what you're talking about, like really understands your challenges. And so like those were the things that were important to me. Well, what about you? I mean, you found this through your lady, but was there any other considerations you had when you were looking at it?
Honestly, I felt a little like I didn't have that many resources to lean on, because I trusted my therapist the most from like a referral standpoint, and this was like the best she had was like this institute that not even like a specific person, just like I know people who, I think she said, either like run the institute or like work very closely with the institute or whatever, so she could vouch for the integrity of the institute at large, but she didn't have like a specific person. And so I was like, good enough. And then the woman that we ended up being matched with in South Africa, and it was like I didn't really have that many choices. So for Couples Institute, they match you with somebody based on your intake form. So it was like largely describe like your situation, like what are the things you're trying to work on, what are like important things to you that need to, you know, exist within a therapist, blah, blah, blah. And time zone, honestly, was like our biggest restriction, because nomad life. So it was kind of like whatever we can get. So like when they gave us the match, I honestly was like, do you have other options? Just so I know like that I have multiple options. And she was like, honestly, you need to just I couldn't really tell if she was saying like you don't have other options, or I think she might have also been saying like we don't like to like this is the best person that we genuinely think is going to be, you know, the best match based on your requirements. I think it was a little bit of both, where it was like they think it's the best person, and also it was just like your time zone's fucking it up anyway. In the beginning I was like, is this the right person? But I think after maybe 3 sessions, then she like knew us enough and like was bringing a lot more value to the table, where she's like knew enough about us to reflect back what she was observing. And so it started becoming more personal. And then at that point I was like, okay. And she like every time, she's just such a like warm person, so like every time she really like reinforces how much she cares about us and like can like see the potential for us to get past all of this shit. So we've grown to really like her. But I will say there's a kind of fine line between like writing someone off right away versus seeing if there is a way for you to kind of like readjust or reframe for it to work well together. But of course, like I said, we didn't have that many options, so it was kind of like, I need to make this work. And then we lucked out that it did work once we got through some bumps. But I hear you about like, you know, sometimes you just feel like there's no way we're gonna click, but other times, especially if you're strapped for options, like you might be able to make it work if you give it a little bit more of a shot.
Yeah, I agree. I think the feedback piece is really important. And it's, I think something that you learn through working with therapists is that like, they're not always right. And you can be like, I don't think you're right. I don't think you're reflecting like what I'm saying. And that's totally cool. Like they might misunderstand sometimes.
They actually ask you explicitly often too, is like,
is this right?
This is, exactly. They don't know. Yeah, correct them and then they'll adjust. Yeah.